Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Lacey, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back. You were on before, and I really loved your story. It was really, at times, heartbreaking, but it's amazing how you've prevailed and overcome that. So I'm so grateful that you're back. And I'd like to welcome all of our followers and listeners. Thank you for believing in us and following this BeliefCast. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So thank you so much for joining us. And Lacey is going to blow your minds because of what she's been through, but yet how she's handled it and what she's doing today. So Lacey is a past surrogate. She's a certified personal trainer. She's a mental health advocate. She's a mentor. She's a mom. She's a wife. She loves fitness. She's got more energy. She's addicted to diet. Is it Dr. Pepper?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't believe that Lacey at one time in her life was being sexually abused. And if it wasn't for a help of a friend that stepped in to stop the nightmare, we may not be having her here today. So it's a blessing, truly, Lacey, to have you here, and the vulnerability you've always been willing to share your story. So why don't you just share a little portion of what you've been through? I know that's a loaded question because you've been through so much, but maybe just start a little bit of some of the struggles that you were going through as a child, and just so our listeners can kind of get reacquainted with that.
Sure. My mother was 15 when she had me, and my biological father was 21 years old. And he stepped out of my life pretty quickly. He would bounce back in, depending on what girlfriends he had around at the time. Yeah. Anyway, and then my mother shortly after got married to another man, my stepfather, who ended up being a phenomenal man as much as he could be. Yeah. And then they had children pretty quickly. So I'm the oldest of 4 kids, the only one with my biological mom and biological dad, but I did have 3 younger siblings. And we had a rough life. My mom got into drugs. My dad had a lot of anxiety, and that's how he coped with, or my stepdad, sorry, that's how he coped with it. And my childhood consisted of, being dropped off at random people's houses, not knowing these people, I've never seen them before, and then trying my best to take care of my siblings. And unfortunately, a lot of my family members didn't know what was going on, and that was my normal. So
you didn't know any different.
I didn't. I think looking back to my core, I knew something was off. Yeah. But I didn't really truly understand it. And then we had been raided so many times that the state of Utah knew what was going on. And I think around that, right before they really got involved, I had moved out with my cousin. And that's when I had suffered from sexual abuse before then. And I remember going to my mom and telling her about it, and her response to me was that she's like, well, I'm not sure what you want me to do about it, because that's one of our biggest customers. Wow. And I was like, okay. And they were going after my siblings, and so I just really tried to put myself in between them and my siblings to protect them. And I just thought that was just life. And then I moved in with my cousin, and I ended up being sexually abused by her boyfriend, and it was really bad. I told her about it. Nobody believed me. And then I got the courage to speak up to one of my friends about it. Yeah. And at this point, I had this innate belief that it was something that I was doing. That something was wrong with me. Maybe if I didn't look so cute, per se, or, maybe if I wasn't so friendly, then I wouldn't have to deal with that. And then she, thankfully, had the courage to not listen to me, and she told her family, and that's when they stepped in and asked me if I wanted to move in with them, just to get me out of the situation.
To get you out, yeah.
Yeah, and then my stepdad died at 31. It was probably 2 months later of a drug overdose. My mom went to prison, and then that's when foster care said, okay, we're done. And they told my family that I was with, if you want to keep her, you have to go through foster care certification. And they were more than willing to do that. And then it was...
Thankfully, right?
Yes. Wow. Oh my gosh. My story is a miracle. I see other kids that have gone through foster care, and not all stories are like mine. And I recognize that. And I feel like it was such a gift that God gave to me. And there's a reason why.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tap into that as much as possible.
Yeah.
But, and then it was an uphill battle, you know, from there, trying to figure out a new normal and, you know, just centering myself on what is right and what's wrong.
Yeah. How did that feel, you know, as a child, where people weren't maybe necessarily believing you when you were telling them, or basically sweeping it under the rug and like, let's don't talk about it. It's our biggest customer. Let's don't even. I mean, how did that feel as a child? Again, you were thinking, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe it's my fault.
Yeah.
But what other feelings were going through your mind? And not only that, you're being the parent too. You're trying to protect all your siblings. You're taking the parent role as such a young kid yourself. How did you do all that?
You know, I didn't know who God was at the time, but looking back, he was very much there. Divine intervention was there. There's a lot of shame. I had a lot of shame as a kid. You know, it was my fault. And then trying to protect my siblings from it too is really difficult. But I would say the main emotion is shame. That I needed to do something different to make it stop. Right.
So when this family thankfully stepped in and said, we'll take her and we'll go through the certifications or whatever. I mean, I know hindsight, we can look back, like what if they wouldn't, like what if they're like, well, we can't take this on, it's too much. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have been like. So thankfully for them. But what was that like being with them? And then how did you start working through all of this? Because there was a lot to work through.
There was. And I look back at the situation, I'm like, man, what a nightmare I was. I'm so grateful for them because it was a lot of work. And I didn't understand. I knew that they were different. I loved the different parts about them. But it was a really hard transition. To be like, why is this not okay? Because it was okay over here. And I used to think that their rules and regulations were stifling and the opposite of loving, when I realized that that's not the case at all. So a lot of therapy, and a lot of freaking love from them. And just new normals, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
A lot of practice.
You know, from my experience in working with people who've gone through similar things as yourself, a lot of times, you know, after it's even over, they're hurting so bad, they don't know how to talk about it, and and they start acting out in different ways. Did you find yourself doing that too, where you got yourself caught up in maybe some unhealthy behaviors because of it? Or, you know, did you find yourself isolating or did you feel depressed, that kind of thing?
No.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was faith. Faith gave me something to hold on to and to realize that not just faith, but my father, my adoptive father, is amazing. He was raised by a therapist, and he's just,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's just really, I get emotional when I talk about him because he's been such a positive force for me. But I remember he sat me down one day and he told me, he said, you have a choice. You know, you have a choice in how your story plays out from now. And that really hit me. I was like, I do. And that's what I call responsibility. I couldn't take credit for what had happened. Right. You know, what my parents had done, but I could take responsibility. And from here on out, it's up to me on how my life is shaped. And that I don't have to be a victim of those things. Wow. So, but faith is what really gave me a lifeline to hang on to. And it's not the end, and I can overcome this and be empowered by it.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting as you're saying this to me, your story reminds me of a girl named J.C. Dugard. I don't know if you know who she was, but quickly she was kidnapped at 11 years old and then sexually abused for 18 years in a shed. Family thought she was dead and gone. Wow. But she lives an amazing life now, just like yourself. And she was asked, how did you get through all this? Kind of like what I just asked you. And she says, I choose not to wallow in self-pity. Yeah. I was like, are you kidding me? And to hear you say what you just said, that you don't have to be the victim. I mean, how empowering is that? you know? So thank you for sharing that just kind of blows my mind. Did you do your own therapy or anything like that? Or is it just basically this guy that you got emotional about that just took you under his wing and just showed you the way?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of talking. I'd almost say that he helped me probably more than therapy did. And there's still stuff that I'm working through, right? Healing is not linear. But I talk to my dad every day, and he walks me through a lot of things, and he's been really just empowering me to take hold of the situation and to be empowered by it.
Yeah. So you're married now. You have beautiful kids. We were just talking about that before we got on here. Your kids are so beautiful.
Thank
Seriously.
You.
I know you've shared before about how amazing even your husband is, knowing what you've been through and how he's been a support through all this. Talk a little bit about him and how that's been for you.
He's a saint. He really is a saint. I was actually talking to my dad recently about this, and I met AJ when I was 17 years old, and then we got married a year later. So I was 18 when I got married.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he really helped me continue that trajectory because he knows who he is. He's a very solid person and very compassionate, non-judgmental, and was just there for me every step of the way. Wow. So I feel like divine intervention once again. Heavenly Father placed this man in my life, and he just really helped me to continue to develop into the person that I am today.
Yeah, what an amazing guy.
Yeah,
AJ.
he is.
Shout out to AJ, right? That's amazing. So now as a mom, going through what you've been through, how has that actually helped you be a better mom?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing is my perspective is different. My therapist recently talked to me about this. So when I was a child, I didn't really get to experience childhood. It was very much had to be in survival mode. Yeah. So now I am experiencing childhood along with my kids. Oh, and it's so beautiful because I feel like I can really just sit and be in the moment with them, and seeing it through their eyes is magical, as you know, and then being able to experience that along with them is a gift. It really is such a gift. Yeah. But I feel like I don't rush moments as much. I'm not guiltless of it. There are a lot of times that I have, but I've really learned to slow down and to really appreciate them. Yeah. And it's also given me a lot of compassion for my biological mother, because she she never got to experience motherhood the way that I experienced motherhood. She never got to experience those bonds, and it makes me feel really sad for her because it is a gift, and it's not anything I would trade for anything. Wow. So realizing that she missed out on those bonds, and I thought that's really special that you are kind of living through your own child, watching your own children. And I think that's great advice for all of us, to take time and just be with the kids, whatever they're doing. So I have 2 grandkids now, and just I'm reliving my childhood a little bit too, just playing with them and hanging out with them. And so, you know, I know how much you love them, and you do so much with them. And, you know, when I follow you on your Instagram and stuff, watching all the fun things you guys are doing, it's remarkable to watch. You know, so, you know, you're a mental health advocate now. Talk a little bit about that and why that is so important to you, and what, and kind of just maybe share with us what you're doing with that. Okay, so the biggest thing that I want to transfer is that, one, we don't have to be victims. I love that. Of our circumstances. And I'm living that, and I know so many other people are living that. That is such an easy place to get stuck in. And like I said, I'm not guiltless. Sometimes I do. And I have to really recognize that that's what it is, and that this doesn't have to define you in that moment or forever. Yeah. I love that. You know, James Allen, who I'm a big fan of, he says, you know, the suffering isn't in the circumstances in the way we think about it. Like, circumstances don't bless one person and harm another. It's all how we choose to look at it and feel for that. So I love that. I think that's exactly what you're saying, right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there are people that have it worse than me, you know, and people that have it worse than, you know, than any of us. And so I think that really gives me perspective too. Yeah.
How has this build up compassion in you? Because you look at people differently now, but in a good way. And I know you do have a lot of compassion, but talk about compassion and why that's so important to you.
Compassion, I've learned, is something that is learned. I think we assume that it comes easily. Same with empathy. Empathy and compassion are intertwined very closely, and it takes practice. You can be sensitive and think that that's empathy, and I think that's the start of empathy. Brene Brown talks a lot about empathy and compassion, and I've really loved what she says about that. But we tend to look at people through our lens and not necessarily their lens. And so I love the perspective that my life has given me, because I feel like I've gotten really good at trying and figure out how to see people through their lens, so how they are perceiving the world right now. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's beautiful. So how have you, because all of us have this voice in our head that's negative, and a lot of us struggle with that. And I know I do, and I have to really work on making sure I change the narrative and say things positive. How do you deal with that? And what are some of the things you do on a daily basis for your own mental health, your own mental fitness, to kind of keep you centered and where you should be?
Gratitude is everything. Gratitude is truly everything. Even in a bad day, you can find a silver lining.
Yeah.
It's sometimes our brains are tricky and they really like to hide them from us. You have to really it's practice, right? So I gratitude journal every morning, and we gratitude every night before prayers with my children.
Oh, yeah.
And that is just hilarious, because if they're having a bad day, it's so hard for them to find that. And sometimes it takes time, but there's always something that you can find. And gratitude truly is the key to unlocking that, I think.
Yeah. What are you grateful for today?
To be alive. The simplicity of being alive, of breathing. It is such a gift. Time, as we know, goes fast, and we're not guaranteed it. And so I wake up every day thinking, I am so grateful to be alive today and to be able to impact my kids on this day, or be able to hopefully spread some kindness, a smile to somebody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. You know, you're very inspirational.
Thanks.
You really are. And again, I love the way you carry yourself.
Thank you.
So many people follow you and love just your attitude and things. And I think when people hear your story for the first time, like I did when you were originally on, I couldn't believe, like, how is this girl so happy after what you've been through? And again, I love the things you're saying, gratitude and compassion and those things. What gets you out of bed? What gets you going? What ignites you to just, keep being this force for good?
Honestly, it's my demons.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
My demons, the things that like to shame is a big one. Shame is so hard. We all have it, and it likes to hide. My kids, but I really don't want anyone to suffer like I did, and to think that their life is hopeless. And so if I can get up and I can share a little bit of my light, then it was a good day.
Yeah.
And even if it's something simple, like not honking at somebody in front of me that's missed the green light, or smiling at somebody out in public. That is the hardest thing I've found for people, to do sometimes. And if you just really connect with them and smile, even just in passing, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah. A simple little smile. And I like what you said about connection. What does that mean to you, connecting?
A lot of it's compassion and empathy.
Back to that,
like I stated before, but also being vulnerable, which is why I've made that my mission. And if I can be vulnerable and I can share what I've been through and the things that I still struggle with today, because like I said, I still have demons, still struggle, then it gives somebody else permission to do the same.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's all we're looking for.
Yeah.
Is a safe space to land and permission to be able to share our own things.
Yeah. your presence automatically liberates others.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And that's what you do.
Thanks.
Your presence liberates other people. It liberates me. It makes me want to be a better person.
Right back at you, Todd.
Okay. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So you're really into fitness.
Yes. Yes.
And I know you love it, and and I love watching. Like you're so passionate about it, and it's like, how has that helped you with your mental health, and why is that so important to you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many studies that you could look up on Google about the endorphins that it releases, but and amongst other things. But it's I really am a much better person and a much better mom if I can get that time. And a lot of times I use it to work through something that I'm battling.
Yeah.
You know, and there, like I said, if you look up the science behind exercise and how good it is for you mentally, it's just one more tool in your tool belt. One more tool in your tool belt.
Yep.
And I find that life should be well rounded. And when I say fitness is a big part, I mean, I have days that I take off, and it's fine. You know, your spirituality, your faith, your physical aspect, they all play in together, and they're all important. So it's good not to neglect any part of it, and just try and find a good, you know, rounded balance if you can. Yeah,
I love that. You know, working out for me is the same way. Exercising, I call it my morning meds.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I get my workout in, it feels like, okay, my day's going to be good.
Yeah.
I feel alive. And I do take days off too, but if I take too many days off, then I'm like, you know,
you get in a funk. Yeah. You can feel it. Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, my morning meds, I gotta have them. So. So you're involved in a lot of things. What are some of the things that you could share with us that you'd have any future plans of things that are coming up or anything you'd like to do? What are you doing?
Somebody challenged me to write a book. That somebody being you. So that's on my radar right now. I'm slowly putting that together.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And then just continuing to do what I'm doing. I've got a couple speaking events coming up, and so I'm excited about those.
Cool.
Yeah. And just really trying to be a light and trying to help people to see their potential and see who they're meant to be.
Yeah. I love that you're doing the book. You need to.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You really, truly do.
Yeah.
You know, I think we talked about this before, but for our listeners, I was told by a really famous ghostwriter that the only way you can ever leave a legacy is by writing your story down. You know, and nowadays you can self-publish it anywhere. And what's cool is 100 years from now, someone could read your story, Lacey, and change their life because of what you wrote down. And so, you know, your legacy lives on forever and ever and ever.
Right. It's the only thing that outlives us, right?
Yeah. But now with podcasts and things like that, we got all kinds of things. But I'm glad that you're doing that.
Thanks.
That's beautiful. So what do you love most about your life?
That is the toughest question I think I've ever been asked. What do I love most about my life? I think where I've come from and the strides that I've made, and being able to show that to my kids.
Yeah.
You know, because life is hard through anybody's lens, and it's easy to compare your life to other people, but if I can take my story and tell them, look at where I came from, you have the power to overcome anything, then it's all worth it. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you, Tom.
And sharing a portion of your story. I know there's a lot of details we didn't get into, but thank you so much. Again, you are a light in this world. You light up my life and so many other people by the way you carry yourself, and especially when I know your story. You know, a lot of times I'll think, if Lacey can be this happy and I'm complaining about this, how, you know, I need to check myself. So you really do inspire not just me, but a lot of people. So thank you for coming here and sharing some light with us today.
Thank you so much.
It's amazing.
I am so grateful.
Thank you. Lacey Swenson, everyone. Please check her out. She's, and correct me if I get this wrong, but on Instagram, it's the.lacy.marie.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's a great way to check out where she's at and what she's doing. please do. She's an amazing person. She was originally on my Belief Cast episode 278. If you want to hear her full-length story, please go check that out as well. You won't regret it. It will make your day. And if you need to be uplifted, just check out what she's doing, and it'll inspire you to be better. So love you guys. Thanks for following us. And again, Lacey, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Todd.